interesting topic for you guys today because I'm going to compare a mountain bike against its mountain bike counterpart. Everything else being equal, 170 travel, 170 travel. This is the Fezzari LaSalle Peak and the Fezzari Tim Peak. They're really twins, separated at birth, and one came out with a motor. I also have a lot of experience with the Score 4060 LT, one on e-bike and one on traditional mountain bike. So I'm gonna put out 7 factors and really compare and contrast them with each other. Maybe declare a winner if there's an advantage in this category. For the purposes of this discussion, we are only going to talk about the full powered e-bikes, about 500 watts of power and 85 newton meters of torque. There are these mid-powered bikes, but they split the difference. So just consider that the difference will be there, but only half or maybe not even that much. So, compare and contrast these two. And we're going to do 7 factors. The first factor, I'm just going to bundle them up, is weight, looks, and price. Okay, so the weight, this one is about 33 pounds and this one is about 52 pounds. So traditionally the differences is about 20 pounds of weight. When you get an e-mountain bike, it's going to be about 20 pounds heavier than its analog mountain bike counterpart. The cost probably going to be about $2,000 more expensive on the e-mountain bike because the motor and battery, that's about how much they cost. Mind you, you don't need to spend as much time, as much money lightening it up with XTR and carbon and whatnot. So maybe there are a little bit of cost savings there on the high end. And finally, I'll talk about the looks. The looks about 5 years ago, the e-mountain bikes were atrocious. They were a work in progress. But with modern day sculpting and technology, they're starting to look quite similar. And as you see in my example, they were able to just preserve the look of the mountain bikes. So if I had to pick an advantage, analog mountain bike on all 3. That's a slam dunk. It's just these guys have it easier. The other caveat is these mountain bikes you can get in a lot of different forms. You can get them in hardtail, rigid fork, single speed, and whatnot. The e-mountain bikes, really they're not as appropriate at the moment. So you usually will find them in full suspension guys these days, just like these 2 examples right here. The number 2 category is maintenance and usability, maybe durability. And traditional mountain bikes, analog mountain bikes, we know what they're all about. You might get a creak from a pivot or from a bearing and whatnot. Lube your chain, do your suspension and brakes. So that's a known quantity. This thing is times 1.5, I think, or maybe times 2, meaning your suspension and your brakes will probably need maintenance a lot sooner because there's a lot more stress on these parts. You're going to climb a lot more usually. Mile per mile, maybe not just a little difference, but over time, you're going to maintain them a lot more. But here's a big difference right now is, when you get home, you have to charge it, meaning you just can't go on a second ride or just forget your post-ride routine. Charge it, lube the chain. You almost have to lube it every ride. So a lot more issues, a lot more to-dos on this level. And then on the durability side, advantage is here as well. This has some durability issues. It's a work in progress for sure. So the motors, the batteries, they lose contact. There's wiring all over, and any of those can go wrong and will go wrong as we go through the developmental stage of e-mountain bikes. And when things go wrong here on the analog mountain bike, you can usually figure it out yourself if you have the tools or you have a buddy. This thing, you have no chance. You have to go to a bike shop, service center, whatnot. When you get that error code, it's like working on old cars versus new. You could find out what the code is, maybe if you're lucky, with your iPhone app. But chances are this has to go in the shop when there's an electronics problem. All right, number 3 probably is the most important of this category is ride quality. Which one has better ride quality, has better cornering, has better stopping, better jumping, better speed on a downhill course. Everything else as equal as possible in all these categories that I mentioned. The advantage goes to the analog mountain bike. People think, oh, e-bikes, they're going to destroy the trail so much faster. They're not faster. They are slower. You know, they're faster up the hill, but on the downhill where it counts, they're not quite as good as the analog mountain bike. They're 20 pounds heavier, mind you. Just put a dumbbell on your frame that's 20 pounds and see what happens to your cornering and braking. So there's been a lot of progress here. They're getting close. It used to be like this. I had an Ibis HD4 or something, and I had a high bike. The gap was huge. I wouldn't take my high bike to Downeyville. You know, I'm going to hurt myself. Now the gap is really closing. But in terms of cornering, this corner is better. You know, you can whip it around much better. You weight, unweight, and then braking, obviously lighter, stops better with brakes being equal. And then the jumping, little root jump, little booter, this thing sends it maybe a foot or two higher than this one. You have to use a different technique. You jump this like a motorcycle, meaning push into the face of the jump. And finally, what is that? Speed, downhill speed. Many people have told me this before, and myself included. If you're talking about a downhill, not like with punchy climbs and whatnot, this is faster. You know, there's no way you put pin aisles on or Loic Bruni on an e-bike and they're gonna beat their traditional analog mountain bike time. It just doesn't happen because unless there's a climb in the middle, these are just faster. You know, they do everything just a little bit better. So advantage, analog mountain biking. All right, number 4, probably the biggest kind of flip of the coin here, where the advantage will seem to shift. This guy's serving now. Climbing, you know, which one climbs better? And the answer is obvious, but I'm going to put some numbers and some real world application to these numbers. So I have a test course, 500-foot climb, 1 mile long, and I have power meter pedals. I put this thing on full power, put this thing on just as is, and I put out 200 watts average on my legs. How long does it take me to climb this hill? With this bike, the analog E-MTB, I'm able to climb this hill in 17 minutes. On my Santa Cruz Blur, a lot lighter, 23 pounds, I climb in 16 minutes. Okay, so bike weight does make a difference. It's not huge, 17 to 16. On the e-bike, with this thing on full turbo, exact same power for asked of my body, my time is 5 minutes and 50 seconds. So obviously this thing was booking, you know, but that shows you the high-end option of the e-bike. And it's a short hill, 500 feet, but let's say it's a 2,000 foot hill. That means you're done here in 20 minutes, and here you're done in, what is that, 17 times 4? So quite a bit, 75 minutes. So quite a difference between these two bikes when it comes to climbing. So clearly the advantage goes to this e-bike, and that's why most people get an e-bike. And a lot of times it's not just a question of time, it's a question of can you do it, or is it worth doing. So if you have a disability, you have an injury, if you're short on time, if you are a kid, if a spouse wanting to ride with your dad or your partner, you know, this allows a lot of options, not just time, but enables a lot of people to be able to climb these hills, because mountain biking is a difficult sport when it comes to real mountains. The number 5 category is the suitability of the equipment. How fit, how able is the equipment for the task of mountain biking? So mountain biking, let's talk about real mountain biking, not gravel riding. It is going up mountains and going down mountains. You know, turns, berms, jumps, rocks, you know, all this terrain, all the unexpected terrain. So mountain biking has always been a great big compromise, just like road biking, where you try to optimize between grip, capability, and weight. and rolling resistance. So you're always trying to balance the two. That's why we have cross-country bikes, and this is an all-mountain bike. But still, you're still trying to balance. Is it too heavy? Yeah, does it have too much drag for me to do a 3,000-foot day at in the nice forest? So you're always thinking about compromise. How much water should I take? How many tools should I take? Etc. Etc. The e-bike, much less of a compromise because you're already 20 pounds heavier. There is no need to go for to save 200 grams on a carbon crank or carbon this, carbon that. Very little needs to be done or to be gained when you try to save weight on your saddle with no padding and whatnot. Same goes for your body. Your body, knee pads, the best knee pads right now are still a pain, meaning they still restrict your movement a few percent and they're kind of warm, right? So you always like deciding, oh, should I take knee pads? Should I take my full face helmet? Should I bring water? So let me tell you, e-biking, much less of a compromise. You take the equipment that really suits you, that's applicable to the task of doing aggressive riding if that's what you're into. So if you're that kind of rider, the advantage is very clearly here. But still, even flat pedals, a lot of people don't want to do it on an analog mountain bike because they feel they lose their efficiency, their sprinting power and whatnot. On an e-bike, less of a compromise, and which is safer. Flat pedals are always safer for the most part, for most people, especially until you get that learning curve of clipless pedals. So, advantage, clearly the e-mountain bike for safety and suitability to task. The sixth category I'd like to compare them together is fitness. What does it do for the fitness of the rider? If you're taking someone who doesn't bike, you put them on an e-bike, yeah, sure, they're going to be fit for sure. But let's take an athlete, that's looking to improve, is looking to race, or someone who's been mountain biking jumps on an e-bike. So huge difference between these two bikes, and the bottom line, the difference is choice. On this bike, the analog bike, if you're going to climb up a 2,000-foot hill, you have no choice but to buck up, buttercup, is what I say. And in my early days, that's what I did. It took me 3 months to make it up to Mission Peak. And it changed my body, changed my whole attitude. But for 3 months, I couldn't do it. This thing, I take a new rider, and in the first day, they're able to climb up to the top. So the choice is not present here. So it's all up to your mental and physical fortitude. It's going to change your body. It's going to mold you. This one, it gives you choice. And let me tell you, the human nature, once given choice, you're not gonna inflict pain on you unless you have some goals and whatnot. So very easily, the analog bike will make you more fit, no question. It's like lifting weights. You have to go through the pain to get the growth. Same thing with a bike. There's just no way around it. People who are very concerned about fitness, yeah, they just hang on to the analog bike and ride it every once in a while. If you go pure here, quite difficult to get fit with your PRs and maintain your top form, etc. You're gonna ride a lot more. Don't get me wrong. You're gonna ride a lot more, but that intensity, that power, that pain threshold, not quite gonna be there. So if you complement it with an analog bike in the stable or in the weekly routine, then it's pretty darn good. So advantage on fitness, analog mountain bike. Okay, the last category is options. Options, enabling, disabling, what bike allows you more flexibility in terms of when to ride, time constraints, weather, a lot of mosquitoes, you want to commute to the trailhead, you want people to ride with slower than you or faster than you. So all these things, the advantage goes to the e-bike. So you get a lot more riding, a lot more quality of riding. You can skip the car, you can commute to the trailhead 5 miles with this, even on your asagais. It's fine. No problem. You're pedaling from minute one. The other thing is it might be 95 degrees out there. You're fine here. You create your own wind. Too cold, just double up on the jacket, put a bag and whatnot. Carry some extra stuff. All that weight, it doesn't really matter. The other thing is people you want to ride with. Now I have like 4 e-bike groups. my neighbors, my high school friends, they're all able to join. Even ones who used to ride, all they talk about is their glory days. Now they can ride. You could maintain the same effort as long as these are very adjustable with the power assist that they deliver. So advantage E mountain bike. So there you go. No holds barred, no hidden agenda. You could see that in the 7 factors, price, fitness, agility of the bike, and downhill speed, this clearly has an advantage. This closing the gap. Most of the R&D is happening on e-mountain bikes, but this still really has some advantages. If that's all you're concerned about, your budget is a hard $1,000 for a bike, for your first bike, this is the way to go. Your only objective is to get fit, and you don't want to just be on a road bike or stationary bike. Then you go analog bike, okay? But if you have all these desires, these constraints, these dreams of adventure, of riding more, etc., then this really has something to add to the table, and it's changing every year. What new products are coming out to market. But if you're like me and a lot of my peers, have both and do your mix. 50-50, 80-20, 20-80. It's a good day to have these options as a mountain biker today. Thanks a ton.